Welcome everyone, and good afternoon, wherever you are across Asia Pacific. It may actually be morning for you, so good morning and good afternoon. Today's webinar is actually going to be presented by AWS and Bryte on delivering business insights super fast with the data lake strategy. My name is Marcus Duval. I will be your host for today. I head up customer success here at Bryte Systems. So before we actually begin, if you need to ask questions, please feel free at any time throughout this webinar, because we will be answering questions at the end. You'll see a blue question mark at the top of your screen in between the smiley and the telephone emoji. So post a question at any time. We'll collect those and answer them at the end of the webinar. There'll also be a very short survey, 4 questions. We'll also ask you to request a free pop. So if you're keen and want to move forward, then the option is there for you. Okay, I think we are ready to begin. So I'd like to start by introducing our presenters. Today, we will hear from industry experts Babar Janhaleen, APAC Head, Big Data, AI, ML Segment, and Pradnya Bhandari, co-founder and chief executive of Bryte Systems. So we've prepared a jam-packed, exciting agenda for you all today. Babar will kick things off with the theme of today being data-driven decisions powered by a data lake. Babar will paint a picture around the innovations and value propositions of an AWS AI ML strategy, the future of the economic landscape of big data with some customer use cases, followed by Pradnya, who will showcase the expertise she brings to the table of being the only, Bryte being the only big data competency technology partner in APAC. Pradnya will demonstrate how to unlock and uncover the value of your data with Bryte Flow on Amazon S3 Data Lake. As I mentioned earlier, should you have any questions, please feel free, and we'll get to those at the end of today's presentation. Without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Babar.
Thank you, Marcus. Can you please confirm you can hear me and see my screen?
Yes, Babar, I can confirm.
Okay, thank you. Folks, appreciate your time this afternoon to spend the next hour with Amazon Web Services and our partners, Bryte Systems. We'll get started. When it comes to data, data has been defined as the new oil. Now, oil was discovered back in the 1850s, 1859 in Pennsylvania to be precise. And 160 years later, we're still finding new ways to innovate with oil. Oil really revolutionized the industrial age, and that's exactly what we are seeing with data, where data is actually revolutionizing the information age. So if data is the new oil, think of machine learning as the refinery for this oil or for this data in this case. I think today, no matter where you turn, you are hearing about artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence, not just how organizations are using it, but even in your day-to-day life. The reality is artificial intelligence is actually nothing new. The initial concept was introduced back in the 1950s, late 50s, 56, 57. Then it sort of died off a bit and then took back up, with neural networks in the 80s. But now we are hearing a lot more about artificial intelligence. Organizations like Amazon have been leveraging artificial intelligence for well over 20 years now. So this is definitely not a new concept or a new solution for us. Whether it is for recommendation engines to determine and advise on, recommend to you what you will buy next based on your shopping habits or your lifestyle, to flight path analysis for our drone delivery systems, to Amazon Go stores that we recently opened up in the US, which is checkout free shopping with no checkouts, of course, and of course Amazon Alexa systems that many of you potentially use at your homes and offices. So AWS and Amazon have a long heritage when it comes to artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is, simply put, a system or service which can perform tasks that usually require human intelligence. But we are taking it a step further, and it's about having these systems adjust to us as opposed to us adjusting to these systems. So you will see more an adjustment of AI ML systems to how we interact with them, as opposed to us having to adjust with these artificial intelligence systems. When it comes to AI, there are three areas you'll hear a lot about. Number one is, of course, artificial intelligence itself. Second one is machine learning, and third one is deep learning. So I'll give you a high overview of what these three are really about. Artificial intelligence is simply a branch of computer science. Just like medical has a number of branches, artificial intelligence has a number of branches. Computer science has a number of branches. So AI is one of the branches of computer science. Machine learning is one of the mechanisms of achieving artificial intelligence. And then deep learning based on neural networks, primarily designed in the 80s, is one of the ways of implementing machine learning. So at a very high level, that's pretty much the gist of what these three are really about: artificial intelligence, machine learning, and deep learning. When it comes to artificial intelligence, machine learning, why is it that you're hearing a lot about it today, especially over the last couple of years? And certainly this year, everything is about AI. Well, there are two key factors that is actually driving this. Number one is data. We are generating data today like we have never done before. Some studies suggest data is doubling every couple of years. On top of that, that data that is being generated, 95% of this data is actually unstructured in nature. So we're generating tremendous amount of data. The more data you can use to train machine models, the better these machine models, these algorithms get for prediction, to provide the results and provide your next steps and next best action. So because we now have a lot more data to work with as opposed to what we did in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, these AI systems are getting more and more accurate, and we see them in everyday use. Second one is training. Now, when you train machine models, it requires immense amount of compute power. Traditional CPUs that we have used at our homes or even in our offices, unfortunately, simply aren't designed for this type of compute, these type of compute workloads. With GPUs, with parallel processing capabilities, they're ideal for training machine models. However, on-prem infrastructure has been extremely expensive for these GPUs to be leveraged for pilots, for instance. So with Amazon Web Services, through our cloud solutions, we provide this infrastructure to organization of all sizes at a fraction of cost, where you only pay, literally by the minute, and only pay for what you use. So two factors: data, and of course the availability of infrastructure, cloud infrastructure to train these machine models has had a major impact on availability and implementation of AI ML. Amazon philosophy, strategy on machine learning is actually very straightforward. We want to enable every developer, every data scientist, and every organization to be able to leverage artificial intelligence and machine learning to innovate. I'll talk briefly about what is it that our customers, what are we seeing our customer use AI ML for? And this is across all industries, by the way. The first one is being able to provide a seamless experience. So whether it's chatbots, whether it's checkout free shopping, so really taking the hard edge, the hard boundaries out. So you suddenly, don't feel like you're talking to a human and suddenly it's a machine and back to a human. It should be a seamless and very, very efficient experience is how AI systems are being leveraged. The second one is about autonomous machines. The best way for me to describe autonomous machines and the use of ML systems and AI for autonomous machines, as humans, there are things we want to do, and then there are things that we are actually capable of doing, and there's a strong delta between the two. Autonomous machines help address that delta, whether it's through predictive maintenance, whether it's through robotic shop floor automation, to being able to fill, let's say, thousands of items in a warehouse at the same time, or whether it is through drones. So it's helping address that delta between what we can do and what we cannot do. And of course, one of the reasons could be because it's too dangerous for a human to carry out such an activity, an autonomous machine makes perfect sense. And third one, potentially the most important one, is the scientific breakthroughs. The reality is, scientific breakthroughs, for the needs of humans, animals, planet Earth. If you take an example of being the ability to identify cancer, let's say in brain cells, which some of our customers and partners are leveraging IML systems for, this is a very compute intensive activity. So having the right tools and technology in place to carry out these type of scientific breakthroughs is how AI/ML systems are being used. Now, key to the AI/ML system, if you looked at my first slide, really it comes down to data. So whether we are talking about machine learning, AI, deep learning, it really boils down to data. But before you get on the AI journey, what we recommend is for organization to have a comprehensive data strategy. This slide, perhaps in a marketing event, would be labeled big data strategy. All of you on the call and us, we are, of course, data practitioners, and we understand while big data is a great marketing term, at the end of the day, it's really about having a comprehensive data strategy. These are a number of moving components we have that helps organizations address their data strategy. But the summary of it really is that you must be able to ingest any type of data, whether it's structured, unstructured, machine generated, dark data, video, for instance, audio. You must be able to have a mechanism to ingest it. Then you must be able to store that data in a cheap format, such as simple storage service from AWS, or we call it S3, in as-is format. Because the traditional data warehouses, data marts, simply aren't designed to work with this amount and this type of data, especially at the speed data is being generated, as I hinted earlier, doubling every couple of years. Once you have ingested that data, you must be able to deliver it to the business for whatever business use case they plan on running. So whether it's through a Redshift data warehouse or spinning up EMR Hadoop clusters or providing analytics through QuickSight. And in parallel, of course, we provide solutions such as CloudWatch to monitor the environment, CloudTrail to audit the environment. Due to limitation of this session, I won't get into the details of each and every component of our data strategy, but this is just to highlight of all the moving parts that an organization require to have an end-to-end data strategy, and AWS provides all these solutions, and they're purely born on the cloud solutions. Now, what underpins our data strategy is actually data lake. Data lake is extremely important for organizations to have for a couple of reasons. Number one, as I hinted earlier, because data is growing so fast and it's at such scale and different varieties, structured, unstructured, and so forth, traditional data warehouses simply are not able to cope with this type and amount of data, number one. Number two, you must be able to experiment with this data, because data warehouses, once again, data marts, data warehouses, not designed as an experimentation platform. So data lake helps you provide an experimentation platform to the business. So when you experiment with this data, where you see value in this data, that can be moved to, let's say, a data warehouse for businesses to use, and data that has no value in it, you can potentially discard. Now with this, data lake is a key initiative. Organizations, we are seeing tremendous interest, especially in Australia, New Zealand region, on implementation of data lake. We have our partners, Bryte Systems, they're actually based out of Sydney, Australia, operating across APAC and North America region, and they are a big data competency partner. They specialize in building these data lakes, and at a very, very, speedy manner. So I'd like to hand this over from here to the CEO of Bryte Systems, Rodney, to take over. Thank you.
Thanks everyone for joining. Really super excited today to present what we have today. Just give me 1 second. Thanks everyone. Hopefully you can see my screen. Excellent. Thanks everyone for joining. Really super excited to talk about the brave new world for analytics with you all and the AWS and Bryte strategy. So let's start. So I've been working with data and data analytics for about 2 decades, and I've seen an evolution of analytics platform. And what I see now and what AWS and Bryte brings to the table is really, really super exciting. So let me start with the evolution and how it's happened through the last few years. So we had databases, and these were OLTP databases, which hosted billing, CRM platforms. They were very useful for what the function that they were doing, and the reporting usually used to be of these databases, and they were canned reports that used to run. But as data started exploding and as organizations realized that data was the new competitive edge, these were inadequate. They just did not meet the expectations of what the users required. And that's where we had analytics databases. Now, these were massively powerful and parallel. You had a lot of hardware put together so that the queries would return really quickly, and they were separate to the operational or your billing platforms, for example. Again, these were great, but they were pretty expensive because you had all the hardware. You also could not fit unstructured data into this platform. And that's when Hadoop came along. So when we talked about big data, it was Hadoop. It was synonymous with Hadoop. And Hadoop offered parallel processing. It was cheap because it was open source. And it also offered structured and unstructured data to be hosted in the same environment. So all this was great. But all three platforms had a few issues. And these are the issues that I've heard from users in the past few years. So users have said to me, okay, so I've got 7 years of regulatory data that I want to store, but I really don't want to process it until the regulatory authority asks me for it. So that was one. Number two, we found that users were saying, this platform is getting really, really, it's getting, it's being used by a lot of people, but the more users that get on, the slower it gets and performance degrades. So it's like having Wi-Fi. You have more and more users coming on, the performance isn't as good, and you really want your own bandwidth, your own network bandwidth to the data. And the third problem that I've seen across most organizations was that most projects got derailed because it was the data had to land. Then it was a schema that was prepared for the data to land. And the architects had to think of all the future requirements, and they had to think of fitting in the existing requirements. And this was never possible because as soon as you finished that schema, there'd be another requirement that would come along. And it was really slow because the users and the business was waiting for the data, and projects found it really, really hard to deliver that data. So that's why I'm super excited that we've got a new platform, which is Amazon S3. So Amazon S3 is the object storage on AWS, and it's basically, file storage. So you upload your photos and stuff. So it's like it's a huge, unlimited, scalable object storage on AWS. And why is this so great? So it solves all the problems that we had in the past. So there is decoupled architecture. So in terms of what we talked about, where you had 7 years of history, and it was actually you didn't want to process it until it was time to process it. S3 and AWS allows you to do that because you have unlimited storage and you can spin up compute when you want to process the data. The second was the problem with performance. Again, you have concurrency. So you can give your users as much processing power as you want on the cloud. And you can say, look, this is the storage. We've already got it on Amazon S3. Go ahead and spin up as much compute as you want. And the third, obviously, was, technically it's called schema on read, but the way the data lake works is that you get your raw data on Amazon S3. When you get your raw data, you don't have to worry about the schema that you're putting this data into. So users can look at this data with different lenses. So one business community can look at the data in a particular way, the others can look at it in a particular way without a central sort of a policing authority to sort of say, oh, this is how you will look at your data. So this is a bit of a nerdy joke here because S3, they're called buckets. So we're talking about data lake in a bucket. And how do you get faster insights with data lake in a bucket? So obviously you have raw data. We talked about that. So you don't have to sort of hone it into a particular structure. Scalable, cost-effective, durable. So Amazon S3 is extremely cost-effective and durable. Scalable, cost-effective, 3 cents a gigabyte, durable, 11 nines of durability. How do you get your raw data? Bryte Flow comes to the party with that, and we'll talk through that a bit further. Easy experimentation and innovation. So when you've opened your data to the cloud, you have all the technologies available to you that you can work with. And you can use your favorite technology. The business users can use whatever technology that works for them. Work with any data. So you can work with structured and unstructured data. You can work with your IoT data. You can work with lots of other external sources. We already talked about decoupled architecture. So now you don't have your storage and your processing power linked together. They are separate. You use when you want it and how you want it. You might have a very, very intensive processing job, but may not require much storage, and vice versa. And we talked about access to technologies. How does Bryte Flow enable fast data, super fast on the data lake? So Bryte Flow is the software that works on Amazon S3 and produces a data lake out of the box. And how does it do that? So we've gone through a few points where we can sort of talk about how you can do that. So it builds an exact replica of your source data. So if you've got structured data and you've got terabytes of data, you cannot pull your entire terabyte of data across to the cloud every day. You have to work smarter. So what you have to do is you have to just pull out the changes, and you have to do that with no coding. So if you're actually doing that with coding, then you're going to be slowed down. Further, you want to have zero impact on the source. So when you're doing these delta changes, you've got a terabyte, you've got a few changes, you do not want to interfere with the billing functions or your other operational functions on your platform. You want that to be a seamless replication onto a platform that you can use for analytics. You also want history for point-in-time analytics. You don't want to keep building this history. You want a solution that helps you with that automatically, if possible. Prepare data models. How do you then, if a particular business community decides that, look, I want to actually look at this raw data with a particular lens, how do I do that? And that's through the building data models. Automated metadata. So you don't want to then have a data lake that's not governed. How do I build automated metadata so that I can get my insights faster? And lastly, and most important, is data reliability. So you might build the biggest castle on top of this data. You might build the best dashboards in the world. But if your foundation data lake is not, the data is not reliable, no one's going to use it because it's not trustworthy. It really has no benefit. Bryte Flow addresses all these issues. So we do a exact replica with no coding, zero impact on the source, history out of the box, data models can be prepared, automated metadata, and we have checks for data reliability. So that's how you can build your data insights super, super fast on S3. Over and above that, it's Amazon S3 that Bryte Flow liberates the data to, and it opens your data to a very, very open environment. I'll go through a few use cases that our customers are using. So number one, obviously, easy analytics. That's a given. Easy to sort of do analytics. and machine learning and AI. So we have customers who are actually using this data for machine models where customers are getting their energy usage by appliance. Customers are using this for optimizing their oil rigging operations. Customers are using this for, and I'm talking about Bryte Flow customers here. They're using this for, in the education industry, they're using it to predict when a particular student may not complete a course and what they need to do proactively. Customers are using this for managing their omni-channel experience for their own customers. So there are so many use cases, and customer apps. They're using it for customer apps. So it's not limited to analytics. It's all the cool use cases like AI and ML, of course. And then there's over and above that, there are so many use cases that you can, it's very, very sophisticated use cases that you can build once you have your data in an open environment that can be used for use cases beyond existing infrastructure. You have the ability to evolve. Customers are saying they don't want to just do predictive analytics. They want faster reflexes. They want to respond very, very quickly to the market. And that's where BryteFlow helps in getting that data really, really quickly for all the data initiatives. Let me show you how and what are the cool the cool technology that BryteFlow brings to the party with all this, the benefits that we've talked about. So first is we ingest data from SAP, from any Oracle system. So it could be Oracle, Oracle Exadata, it could be SQL Server, Salesforce, and a few other sources. We get that from the source with minimal impact on the source. And over and above that, we get only the deltas. So that's the first part of the cool technology. So we work very efficiently, pulling out the changes only, and this is for large enterprise systems. This is it's amazing, because without that they'll have to transfer the entire terabyte across. Then over and above that, we provide the ability to build data models on Amazon S3, and this is with just SQL skills. You don't need to code, you don't need to write any fancy procedural logic. All you need is SQL, which is what Power Business users have. And then obviously you've opened up your world to analytics, machine learning, AI, external sources, etc. So as we talked, what BryteFlow does is low impact on the source. So we actually have cool technology to just read the database logs of a database. We don't actually touch the database or the source at all. We do a continuous sync. You can specify the frequency with which you want to replicate your data. It's totally at the user's request. And over and above that, for example, SAP, we get asked this question about how do I replicate my data to SAP, and how do I get value out of it in terms of the business logic. And SAP, you can build your data models on SAP. So you have the raw data that's available to you, and you're building your data models on top. So the users can look at their SAP data or Oracle data or SQL data in the context that they want to look at. So the old way of doing things, where there had to be one big data model that everyone had to follow, everything, it was one size fits all, and every data element had to go into a particular structure. That's gone. That's gone with this technology. And you're basically opening up your insights and your analytics to a bigger world, and it's more usable for the users. We talked about history earlier on, and a lot of customers find this feature really, really amazing. And that's why I thought I'll have a quick slide on this. So this is built out of the box. We build automated time series data retention on your data lake out of the box. As we get the deltas across, we stitch the data together and we build history. So we've got two customers here just to show you. We've got Tim and Kate, and that's on day one. Day two, Tim and Kate, Kate was dropped from the database and Mark was added. Now, the data in the data lake will reflect this very clearly. It will say, look, Tim, the postcode for Tim was this till this date. It was superseded by this postcode on this date. Kate was dropped from the database, so she's got a date against her where she's no longer part of the current customer list, and Mark has been added. So this is the functionality that's out of the box with BryteFlow, no coding, absolutely just point and click. Just a brief overview of the BryteFlow architecture. So we work with all standard AWS services. So all the extraction or the pulling of the data across to AWS and building the data models integrate through standard AWS standard functions. So CloudWatch logs, CloudWatch metrics, SNSs. We also have the ability to push the data to Amazon Redshift, which is the data warehouse. You can also push that to RDS for any customer-facing apps if you wanted to. And you can build as many folders as you want. You have your raw data folder. You can build your processed outputs. You can have your data assets. You can also build a security layer. You can say, look, these are the users that I will only give access to. I don't want to give everyone access to my raw data. I will only give these 10 users access to the raw data, but everyone else has to look at another folder. So all that can be managed. The best practice in terms of security, in terms of chopping the data to who can see what. It uses the best practices that AWS offers in terms of security, in terms of what services to use. So it's a very, very open platform. And just as I thought we were actually planning to do a demo of the software, but we weren't quite sure whether the demo gods would be kind to us today. So what we thought is we just have screenshots, and I'll take you through how easy it is to set your data replication and your data models on Amazon S3 for your data lake. So this is the part where you actually get your data using BryteFlow from your sources. And all you have to do here is you have to configure your source and your destination file system. So source, you just give your database, user ID, password, go test connection, you're done. That's basically it. In your destination file system, you say, this is my S3 bucket. That's a terminology. This is my S3 bucket. This is the folder that I want the data to land in. And this is my EMR instance. Again, that's it. That's all the configuration you need to do. Then you go down to your database and say, these are the tables I'm interested in. And it's just a matter of then going and saying, okay, so this is my primary key. And by the way, I want to mask certain fields because these fields are too sensitive. I don't want them in my database, in my data lake at all. So I can mask them here. And we talked about history earlier on. This is the primary key with history option. So you can say, look, I want every record to land in my data lake with history. And that's when you actually enable that option. Otherwise, you can say primary key where it will be a replica of your source. And that's the configuration they have to do. That's it. After that, you basically just schedule it. You say, I want it periodic, I want it daily, weekly, and your data now is syncing to your data lake. There is no data wrangling. So a lot of data analysts, the problem that they have is actually even getting access to the data lake, to the data, because just going through firewalls and trying to get access to that particular data is really tough. So that's how easy it is to just get your data landed on your data lake. The next part is actually building data assets on your data lake. So we've taken SAP plant maintenance module here as an example. And what we're doing is we're building a task data asset from what's available on the data lake. So again, what you do is you say, these are my sources, and I want the data to be processed. And I'll zoom into this a bit further. This is the models data, task data asset that I want to build. Then I want this data persisted on S3 so that other users can have access to it. And oh, by the way, I also want to push this to Redshift. Now, if you can see, that's the workflow that you can actually do with that. And all you need to do is write SQL on top of S3. You don't need PySpark, you don't need any other procedural logic, you don't need any other language. So SQL is what business users are business users are very comfortable with. That's all you write. And what it does is uses S3 and treats it like this unlimited database and unlimited data analytics platform for all your data initiatives. Bryte is loved by enterprises, so we are very, very fortunate to have really, really great customers who we've worked with. We work very, very well with enterprises, so Origin Energy, ANZ, NIB, Volks Communication, and those are kind words from Origin Energy, James Moore, General Manager, Data and Analytics. Yeah, so we're very fortunate to have really amazing customers. And thanks to all the feedback that we've got from our customers, obviously we are, as Babar mentioned, we are an advanced technology partner with big data competency, the only one in the APAC region. We also were awarded the Technology Partner of the Year award by AWS, really humbled and proud to have received that award. And again, kind words from the global partner team. So today we are offering, there's an offer on the table, there's a free POC, which AWS and Bryte bring to the table. So you can book a free proof of concept to implement your Bryte Flow software to ingest application data from SAP, Oracle, SQL Server to your Amazon S3 data lake. And that's the beauty of this environment. You can experiment, you can learn fast, you can throw away the environment if things don't work. And this offer is valid till end of September. So we look forward to hearing from you. That's the email that you can email Marcus, and he will definitely get back to you. So I think with that, that's the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for spending your time here today, and really appreciate that. Thank you again. Over to you, Marcus.
Thanks, Pratnya. We've seen a few questions drop in, and what we would like to do is talk to you a little bit more about what these questions are. So the first question is to Pratnya. Is the continuous sync version controlled?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can control it, you can schedule it at any frequency you want. So you can say, I want to do that, like we showed that schedule screen. You can go every a few minutes, you can go hours, you can go daily and weekly as well. But, you may not want to do that weekly. But yeah, absolutely it is.
Thanks, Pratnya. Next question is, what other data sources can we look at here? As an example, Hyperion data.
So what Bryte really specializes in is in enterprise structured data. So, that's where your crown jewels are, basically. So you want to get that to your... so we work with MySQL, we work with NetSuite, we work with platforms, and we then have the ability to join with external data on the platform as well. I hope that answers the question.
Okay, another question we have here is, how do you get your SAP business logic into the data lake?
That's a great question, and that always comes up. So so in terms of getting your business logic for SAP, what you need to think of is you have to work backwards. What are the data insights that you need? And then you work out what business logic you want to replicate on your data lake. You don't really want to replicate your entire SAP business logic on your data lake. So that's what we'd say you should do. And I think we ran through that demo where we were running with the tasks data asset, the tasks maintenance data asset. You basically have a denormalized sort of a set that business users can work with on their SAP data so that they can derive insights into it. And again, you're not sort of constraining users to say, this is the only way you shall look at data. You have software that you can just write SQL on. So even though the underlying platform is an object store, what BryteFlow provides on top of Amazon S3 is that it makes it look like a database. And you can write your standard SQL on top of it, and you can produce any data assets or business logic that you want out of your SAP data lake.
Fantastic. Thank you, Pradnya. We have another question here. Can your software join with other external data?
Yes, absolutely. So if you have landed that data onto Amazon S3, it's very straightforward to actually land to join the data with any external source. You can join that and write SQL on top of both the sources with your enterprise and your external data and produce any insights that you were looking for.
Thank you, Pradnya. And I love this question. How do you prevent the data lake from becoming a data swamp?
That's a good one. So, like I said, BryteFlow provides automated metadata on top of any of the data that BryteFlow replicates. We also have data lineage as part of the software. And on top of it, we also integrate with AWS Glue data catalog. So all of that put together, you will not have a data swamp. You will be swimming in a very, very good data lake.
Hey, Marcus, let me add to that on the data swamp. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
So data lakes are nothing new. I mean, data lakes have been around a long time. The challenges that have come, and this word about data swamp and data dump, whatever you want to call it, I think one of the most important thing organizations need to realize is while data lake is a marketing term, the value proposition of data lakes are real, right? It's really about making sure that when you make decisions, you're making decisions on all the data points available to you, rather than just relying on traditional data warehouses, which by some studies will suggest are barely holding 30 to maybe under 40% of the overall data. So without data lake, number one, you're making decisions on partial information. Secondly, these data dumps come about when organizations don't have clear use cases. I think it's very helpful for organizations to reach out to, Bryte systems, to reach out to AWS. Let's say they're a telco, or let's say they're a bank or a retail, as to, what are some key use cases organizations have leveraged. And, we've got literally hundreds of references we can share in use cases. I think addressing that and outlining what the business outcome we are targeting towards use case reviewing use cases would help in making sure that your data lake doesn't turn into a data swamp.
Fantastic. Thank you for that, Babar. I think we're coming close to wrapping things up, unless there are any other questions for Babar or Pradnya. Yeah, we can see a few of those have actually come through the Q&A section of the webinar. So we do appreciate those questions that have come through. What we are going to do is make this recording available through a link. So we will send that out through to you after this session. As we mentioned earlier, we will send the presentation on request. So if you'd like to reach out and get in touch, we're more than happy to share both of those decks with you